Look at this portrait. This is the Confucius we all know from textbooks and famous quote compilations, the serene, benevolent sage, perfectly composed and untouchable. This animation illustrates a puzzle. Sima Qian's Shiji organized history into 3 tiers: emperors, territory-ruling kings, and everyone else. Confucius was an exiled wanderer, belonging at the absolute bottom, yet Sima Qian placed him alongside kings. Sima Qian was notoriously strict about his hierarchy. He knew exactly what he was doing. Why did a meticulous royal archivist deliberately break his own system to crown a failed beggar? To understand that choice, we have to strip away the myth and look at the actual man. At age 56, late in life by ancient standards, Confucius packed his bags and left his home state. He had a specific vision for an ethical society, and he hit the road to sell it. Nobody bought it. For 14 straight years, he traveled from court to court. The rulers of Wei shut the door on him. The state of Chen ignored him. The king of Chu found him mildly amusing, but ultimately useless. In an era where military might dictated survival, he was just a highly educated, burdensome consultant. The absolute bottom came in the wilderness between the states of Chen and Kai. Provisions ran out. His entourage was entirely cut off. For days they had nothing to eat, and his strongest disciples began collapsing in the dirt from sheer starvation. His most fiercely loyal student, Zilu, finally snapped. He approached his starving teacher with raw bitterness, asking if a nobleman was truly meant to suffer such deep humiliation. Confucius gave a stoic answer. The nobleman suffers and holds firm. The petty man suffers and crumbles. Most of us know what it feels like to pour everything into a goal and get absolutely zero validation from the world. Confucius endured that exact silence, wondering if his path was a mistake, for 14 straight years. Now, look closely at this bronze bust. It embodies the crushing, absolute authority of the Han Dynasty imperial court. This was Sima Qian's world. As the grand historian, he held a prestigious, protected position right beside the emperor, until he spoke out of turn. When a general named Li Ling was forced to surrender to enemy forces, the entire court demanded execution. Sima Qian stood alone and defended the general, stating the facts. The emperor was enraged. The punishment was immediate and horrifying. Sima Qian was sentenced to castration. In ancient China, losing your physical integrity was a shame infinitely worse than a death sentence. It meant permanent social ruin. He chose to endure the mutilation anyway. He swallowed the humiliation and stayed alive, purely because his historical records were unfinished. Sima Qian's writing became a bridge between 2 eras of suffering. Granting the rank of king to an exile, the historian codified a new definition of power. It belonged to the spirit that refused to snap, even when the world tried breaking it. Sima Qian's Confucius is a man of visceral reactions, someone who allowed the world to see his edges through moments of extreme tension and grief. Take the siege at Kuang. While traveling, Confucius and his students were suddenly ambushed and surrounded by a violently angry armed mob. It was a case of mistaken identity, but the threat was immediate. The disciples panicked, entirely consumed by the chaos. What you're looking at is a guiqian, a traditional stringed instrument. In the middle of this terrifying standoff, Confucius sat down, pulled out an instrument just like this, and began to play. He calmly told his terrified students that if heaven wanted their cultural mission to die, they wouldn't have survived this long. He played until the mob dispersed. The second event happened years later. Remember Zilu, the student who snapped during the starvation? Zilu was eventually killed in a violent political uprising. His enemies didn't just execute him, they chopped his body to pieces, turning it into pickled meat. When Confucius heard the news, he didn't offer a detached, philosophical proverb about the cycle of life. He wept openly, and he completely shattered every single jar of pickled meat in his home. He never touched the food again. His greatness lay right there, in his absolute refusal to hide his fear or his grief behind a mask of forced enlightenment. Look at this quiet, isolated mound of earth. Confucius died at 73. By any conventional metric of his era, he failed. His political ideals were ignored. The warring lords kept fighting, and he passed away with only his students by his side. Yet when Sima Qian sat down to write the official history of the world, he looked at that impoverished teacher and deliberately placed his name among the kings. This is the Da Chang Hall, part of the massive architectural empire dedicated to him today. Think about how many literal emperors, generals, and conquerors from 2,500 years ago have been completely erased by time. Meanwhile, the man with no land built a kingdom of philosophy that outlasted all of them. It leaves us with a question. If the world ignores your value, if nobody validates your work, can you keep walking your path anyway? Confucius did. Sima Qian did. Your legacy doesn't require the world's permission. If you hold true to your convictions while everything around you crumbles, you are already the king of your own history.